Hi guys, my name is Vincent Humble and I'm a network technician and I want to show you what it looks like to solve a real world problem with PowerShell. Now, my number one problem at work is that users come up to me and they say, my internet's not working. Over time, I figured out that I could solve this problem by re-inputting our DNS server addresses and restarting the network adapters. So I figured out how to do that with PowerShell and I'm going to show you guys that in a second. But first, I want to show you some basic PowerShell commands that I've learned to use that have been super useful to me. The first thing that I want to show you is if statements. Now, if statements are awesome because you can evaluate if a statement is true, execute blah, blah, blah. So, for example, if this number equals 1, then tell me it's 1, right? Always remember to enclose your strings in double quotations. So, if number equals 1, right host, it's 1. All right, let's check it out. Hey, look at that. It's 1. Now, if the number is 2, obviously, I always forget in PowerShell, we don't use the equal sign to determine equality. We use -eq. So don't forget that. It shouldn't tell us that it's 1 because it's not 1. So there we see it worked correctly. I set the number equal to 1 and the number is not 2, therefore we get nothing. What if you want your script to take a different action if the statement is not true? Well, that's where else statement comes in. So we use else and we put a bracket and we say it's not 1. Right? So we go like that and boom, it's not 1. Now, this is a little confusing because I did this. So it's 1. It's not 1. Okay, there we go. So that is if-else statement. Those are awesome. Now, what if you want to do this for like 1 through 10? This would be a lot of evaluations to do, and you would want to do all if statements, right? So if number is blah, 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 that's way too much to type out, and it looks messy. So what you can do, instead of doing a bunch of consecutive if statements, is you can use a switch case. Now, a switch case, it just puts the variable in there for you. And that's what you're evaluating. Okay, so this is our switch statement. This is how it looks. Up here, I'm establishing the variable. And then we have the evaluation statement in the parentheses. And again, the execution. So if this number matches, we should get right host. It's 4, right? There we go. However, what if you want it to only evaluate the statement until it finds a true one? In this case, we see that it evaluates all statements because even though this one is declared true, it still goes and evaluates this one and also declares that one to be true, which causes us to get 2 printouts. So what you can do in that situation, if you want it to only go until it evaluates one as true, is you can do a semicolon break, and boom, it breaks away and it only does that one. Now, what happens if we do a number that matches none of them? Nothing happens. So you could put a default statement, and that will catch the switch statement in the case that nothing happens. Okay, so we do that and we get nothing. Invoke-Command is great. I use it a lot to send commands to remote computers, and it basically will execute the commands as if you were at that computer. So this works off of like computer name. It has a lot of different parameters that you can use and you can look into yourself. But basically, if you get the computer name correct, then you can send an entire script block within brackets, and you could say for it to do whatever you want it to do. You could grab information this way, you can send commands, and that's great. I can't show it to you guys right now because I don't have another computer on my network, but I use this every day and it's really useful to look into. So if you just Google Invoke-Command Microsoft, you'll get the docs.microsoft.com website, which is super useful. And this can be a little overwhelming initially, but I have spent a ton of time on this site reading about different parameters and trying to figure out how they work. And this is really helpful. So I spend a ton of time on this site at work when I'm working on PowerShell scripts, trying to understand how things work. But it can be a little overwhelming at first, so just try to find what you need. Don't try to understand everything, and yeah, just grab what you're looking for. All right, so those are the commands I wanted to show you guys, and next I just want to show you how my script works, and I'll just go over it briefly. Okay, so now I want to show you guys my script, and I had so much fun learning and making this. It took me quite a while. I kept coming back to it and just cleaning it up and adding different features and making sure that it was as convenient as possible because I knew that this was a tool that I wanted to share with the rest of my team. but I didn't want it to be a hassle because I know if it's a hassle, they won't end up using it. So this entire script is on a loop, which means you can run it as many times as you want. And it has, at the very end, it asks you, do you want to continue, yes or no? And there's a simple if-else statement to continue the script or not. Now, the second thing that encompasses basically the entire script is this try statement. Now, anything within these try brackets from up at the top all the way down to right here, if there's any error that's thrown, then it won't error out the script and cause them to force to restart it. Instead, it will go to this catch statement and it will say, an error has occurred, please try again, repeat equals true, start over at the beginning, no problem. So the try catch is also very important for the script to be useful to my teammates. Now, the first thing the script does is it asks for the computer name, and it uses that to get the IP address and the fully qualified domain name of the computer. The IP address is then trimmed down into the first and third octets so that we can determine not only how the device is connected, but where it is. So we have a switch statement based on the octet of the IP address. We determine where it is. Where it is then piped into another switch case that determines the order of the DNS server addresses. So now we know what computer it is, where it is, and the order of the DNS server addresses. Great. So we get service winrm because Invoke-Command depends upon winrm, and we start that service. And then we invoke a command. We invoke the command based on the computer name, we pipe in our variable arguments, and we send an entire script block that does the actual work that we need to get done. So this grabs the net IP address, which matches the IP address that we already figured out, and it sets the DNS client server addresses on that network adapter to our predetermined DNS server addresses. If we did not check which network adapter we were setting the DNS server addresses on, we could screw up other connections they may have with other network adapters, and we don't want that. So this is important. After we reset the DNS server addresses, we get network adapter and restart network adapter. So we do restart all their network adapters, but this does still save them a ton of time when compared to me having to go over there physically or walk them through it for them to understand the process or restarting their computer. Now, this second if statement is checking for wireless clients because we have a different procedure for wireless clients. So we use the same switch statement to determine their geographic location, but they're connected to a WLAN. So we grab that WLAN SSID, right? And we set their connection mode to auto, which basically is that little box you check that says connect automatically. Because if we restart their network adapters and they're not set to connect automatically, then they're just going to stay offline and have a problem. We won't be able to connect to them again remotely, and we've created more work for us to do. So this is important that we set this connection mode to auto and then we restart the network adapters, right? And then we get to the, do you want to go again? I am not an expert by any means, but I'm learning a lot, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. Maybe someone will find this helpful. Maybe someone will just reminisce on what it was like to be a little bit newer to things. The great thing about writing PowerShell is that there's often someone else who has written what you're trying to write. And you can just Google it. You can just Google search for whatever you're looking for. Like when I was writing this, I was all over Google looking for how do I restart a network adapter? How do I set DNS server addresses? How do I find a WLAN? And how do I set the connection mode to auto? All that stuff I was researching. So don't feel bad if you have to go and research. Like that's the point. That's what you're supposed to do. You have all this knowledge at your fingertips. Go for it. Don't try to figure it out all on your own when someone else has done it for you. That's not efficient. That's not saving anyone time. You're not proving anyone to anything. At the end of the day, your goal is to, accomplish what you set out to do, and using as few resources as possible. So that's great. It's great to research. It's great to steal from other people. People put things online because they want you to use what they've already done, and that's awesome. I learned from other people. I learned from other people on the internet, and that's what allowed me to make this, despite knowing so little about PowerShell. Now, I would say be careful when you're making a script that you know what you're running on your computer, because you don't want to potentially do damage to your system or create vulnerabilities or security threats on your own network by running a script that you don't know what it does. So the best thing to do, I think, would be to rewrite the script yourself. Make sure you research every command that you are using in your script so you know what it's doing. Never just copy and paste stuff from the internet and run it on your computer. Do not do that. but understand it, learn from it, use it. That's all I have for today for you guys, and I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.